Right, we're now going to talk in more detail about this typical D5 pawn break because I think it's such an important part of playing in Najdorf. I was playing a tournament in Batavia, and the organiser, who's the organiser of that Batavia tournament?
It's Mergin.
That's it, Mergin van Delft.
Yeah, lovely guy, Mergin van Delft. And this tournament in Batavia, I played there as well, and it is one of my favourite tournaments. It's in a cafe. Yeah. You come out of Amsterdam train station,
that's right,
and it's one of the nearest cafes. Yeah. They do something like 50 Belgian beers.
Yeah.
And I'm a smoker. I went, and the smoking room was quite interesting. Yeah. It smells quite strong down there. Yeah. Anyway, it's a great tournament. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just taking over your.
No, I think we should talk about that tournament actually.
Yeah, just forget about the DVD and talk about Amsterdam, shall we?
Well, I mean, there's quite unusual preparation you could have for those particular games, but we shouldn't go into that now.
No.
But yeah, he was talking in great detail really to me when we were taking a trip, because I then took a train journey to Hamburg because I was filming a chess-based DVD. He lives in Hamburg, and he was telling me how because he's quite a theoretical expert, and he was saying how important this D5 break is and how often it seems to come up in games in the Najdorf. He said it's like almost like the most important concept in the Najdorf. So I'm going to show you a typical game. This is a game between Bart Michiels, playing white, against E Sutovsky, black, and this was played in the Antwerp Invente Chess in 2009.
Quite a recent-ish game then. I mean, we've seen the D5 idea before, haven't we, Danny?
Sure.
I mean, we've seen it being used. Svidler had it, and then Garry Kasparov had it in that famous game where he sacked on C3. So we've already touched upon it.
But I think we want to look at a game where it's like the most important concept in that particular game, because I think it's definitely worth looking at in more detail.
All right, mate. Well,
so let's kick off.
Take us through it.
So we'll get to the.
So I just want to say here, Bishop E2, we've been mainly looking at Bishop E3, Bishop E2. Let's just touch upon theory as we go along, because everyone here is trying to learn the opening, as well as me.
Absolutely.
And tell us about Bishop E2. So what are the pros and cons? What's white trying to do? What should black do?
Well, Bishop E2 was really popularised by Karpov in the 1970s because it's a more positional and quieter way of playing. But you can often, if black doesn't play the typical Najdorf approach, the typical Najdorf approach with E5, he often goes for E6, and then we get these Scheveningen variations, where white will generally go for some kind of F4 move.
Okay.
Which is quite interesting. That's another subject entirely, really, but. That line was very, very extensively tried in both the Karpov-Kasparov matches and also the later Kasparov-Anand matches.
Right.
So
again, after Bishop E2, I mean, what's White trying to do? Is he just trying to castle and go F4 generally? Is that his?
Yeah, he's just trying to play quite solidly. I mean, Karpov really popularised this line. I think it's generally fallen out of favour now because it's quite easy for black to equalise.
Okay.
But it's still a dangerous line. I mean, what you tend to find, Simon, with these lines is they fall in and out of fashion. But Bishop E2 isn't necessarily worse than H3 or Bishop E3.
It's fashion.
It's fashion.
I'd imagine at club level, which a lot of people watching this are going to be, they're not going to be GM strings.
Bishop it might be,
Well, it might be, but good luck putting up with us two if you're GMs. But Bishop E2, I imagine at club level is a simple, common move that you'll get a lot. So,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean that's a point worth discussing actually because what you tend to find when you're playing a Sicilian, I mean straight off the bat, 50% of your games might be anti-Sicilians.
Yeah.
You might be up against the C3 Sicilian or the Bishop B5 Sicilian. But actually, if you learn like the Najdorf anyway, I think you'll get a better feeling for a lot of positions which tend to originate in those kind of openings as well.
Sure.
So it actually helps, like for example, there's lines in the Bishop B5 check, which tend to be quite similar to the Najdorf.
And one of the advantages of doing the DVD we're doing here, I mean, of course, a lot of people might not like this as well as other DVDs. This is not as theoretical.
Sure.
But the point of this is looking at the ideas. And the ideas might be able to work in other openings as well. So, I mean, I'm thinking after Bishop E2,
Yeah.
I mean, normally with the sharper lines with bishop e3, where white's castling queenside, we like e6, I think, don't we? We like the e6 ideas.
Sure.
But against bishop e2, because white's playing a bit quieter,
that's right.
maybe we should go e5 here. I mean, what are you going to recommend later on in the theory? E5,
well, I mean,
E6?
like I said earlier, I think you could make an argument of saying you play e5 against almost anything, but I would actually recommend e5 and e5. I've always played e5 against bishop e2.
Let's go for e5 then.
Yeah.
Because you're the expert. So if bishop e2, we go e5.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
And then white plays knight b3, and then we
bishop e7. So just talk us through the moves. Bishop e7.
Yeah. So black is just playing solidly.
Hmm.
He just wants to castle, and eventually he'll play bishop e6.
So remember to highlight the moves as just that you're talking about, in case players are not sure.
So bishop e6
to control b5.
Yeah, and it generally castle here, and you know, black normally always castles in the Didorf.
Normal simple moves. Yeah. Okay, so let's go through these moves. So castles.
Bishop e3.
White develops.
Yeah, very standard move.
And now we've got to decide where we put our pieces. So bishop e6 is normally the square to put your bishop.
Sure.
Do you ever put the bishop on b7? If you highlight the b7 square.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, Finn, do you ever put it there? That's the only other square I can see it going to.
Yeah.
Not really, I guess. It normally always goes to bishop e6. So
I mean, you could do in this line. I mean, there is a line, for example, after castles. If white was to go f4 here, I think that's a slight mistake.
Right.
Because black now goes b5, and this is known to be good for black.
Because e4 is weak if you highlight that pawn.
Yeah.
And we could try to attack that.
Because now we have very simple...
So put the bishop, highlight the bishop going there,
Yeah. There's also this extra option of going queen... Because you've got f4, there's this extra option of going queen b6 check.
Yeah.
So, for example, if white's normal counter to the move b5 in these types of systems is to go a4 and then knight d5. But now black could take, and when you take with a queen, rather than playing the passive rook a7... we could maybe think about going queen b6
and bishop b7,
and then bishop b7, and then we sort of got a very nice position already. So generally speaking, white doesn't go f4 immediately. This is a mistake.
Right.
So he should play either. I mean, the main line now is the subtle move king h1.
Okay.
And the thinking behind king h1 is actually in a lot of positions white will go g4.
Right.
So it looks rather strange.
Yeah.
But he's also waiting, and like I say, in some positions f4 is now because we don't have this queen b6 check.
So let's highlight those moves when you talk about them. But, I mean, okay.
Yeah.
And f4 and g4 is kind of thing.
F4, G4.
Okay.
Well, so king h1 is, but in the game, white played the move bishop e3.
It looks like a normal developing move.
Yeah. And
okay, bishop e6.
Yeah. So now white plays the move f4. So the idea of f4 really is he wants to push black back on the king side. He wants to play f5 and really kick this bishop off, this great square on e6. The bishop on e6 is a really good square because it controls d5.
So show those moves, just highlight them. f5, and that bishop will have to move away from... Okay, right.
Is anyone else called you a control freak?
Well, I thought, as people maybe can't...
Sorry, viewers.
I think every single game I say...
It's not my fault, Simon, I'm incompetent.
I think literally every game I say, can you highlight the squares? And you're just like, e4, e5, d5. People at home might be thinking, what's he talking about? Highlight the squares. It's not bloody hard. All right?
It's a bit like when you asked me to look after your cat. But, let's not go into that.
I don't want to talk about that.
Okay.
Still lucky to be alive at the moment. So you're pushing it. But okay, just highlight it when you talk about it. Otherwise,
so black plays queen c7, and that's basically the idea of controlling this c4 square, because now we can meet f5 with the move bishop c4, which again is very important because we want to keep some control over this d5 square. If he takes,
let's have a look. Does that happen in the game?
So that actually happened. Yeah. So now if he was to take, we take with the queen. Then I think the important point is if he goes knight d5 here and you take, he cannot just get a piece to d5 without me exchanging. So if we go queen d5, for example, I take, and now this is completely different to a position where you've got pawn on d4. I've got a weakness on d5.
Yeah.
Now I've got a very nice pawn structure.
I think this is worth pointing out because this pawn structure, we talked a lot. Again, highlight the blooming square d5. Thanks, Gormally. I can see there's going to be a fight at the end of this. No.
I don't think so.
No. Well,
You're too big for me.
Thank you. But d5, this is really important. If black can ever get this pawn structure where you force white to move the pawn from e4 to d5, you get rid of the weakness on d5. Your pawn on d6, if you can just make that one, is also now not a target, which it was in the half open file.
Absolutely,
so this is nearly always a good thing for black to try to achieve. So if you can get this as black, always, this is very important to try to make
a good continuation might be something like knight d7, and then if he was to play knight a5, for example, we could actually maybe go rook b8, and then we could expel the... Sorry, actually, that's a mistake. So I just realised because of bishop a7.
Probably not a big mistake.
Not a big mistake, because we'd still go rook a8 anyway. But if we play the other rook, then we go bishop d8, we eject the knight, and then we can start rolling on the queen side.
Okay.
But in any case, we got a perfectly fine position. But so white now plays a very aggressive move, but it has a slight drawback. It weakens his king. So he plays the move g4. So now his king is a little bit more exposed, but he's played a very aggressive setup because, of course, he wants to play g5, kick that knight away, and then he's got complete dominance over the d5 square. So that's not really what black would... I mean, if black got a position like this would start to look rather horrible.
Isn't this a bit like what Bobby Fischer did in our first game of the DVD?
Absolutely.
Bobby played g4, g5 to kick that knight on f6 away to control that big square, and let's highlight one more time, d5, because that's what the knight was defending. So this is a dream position for white, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely, and also black would have to worry about. I mean, white could play knight d5 as well immediately, and then just defend. And also, white would constantly have to. Black would constantly have to worry about this move f6.
No, that's horrible for black.
So it's something you absolutely want to avoid. So you have to play quite accurately here. But of course, Sutovsky played the move h6
instead of knight d7.
Instead of knight d7, absolutely. So he's trying to control g5. White carried on very logically with the move h4.
And this is the key moment of the game.
This is the key moment. So now you need to think. White has clearly weakened his position. What do we do to try and, I mean, we can't really go knight d7 because he's going to go g5 again. So what do we do to try to liberate our forces?
And this is really key. This happens a lot in chess. It's like you've got to notice the change of moods and the timing, because if you're not looking at your opponent's ideas and you just allow your opponent to do everything he wants, you're probably going to lose every game you play. So you need to fight against their ideas.
Absolutely.
So there's only really one move here, and this is the move that you've got to remember.
Really star move, d5.
Brilliant move. Even if you lose a pawn, this works very well, especially here because the white king is so exposed because his pawns have run away from it. But d5 works better when the white king's exposed, obviously.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it's a liberating move.
It's a liberating move. But it's certainly taken, as you say, I think with the white pawns back on g2 and h2, this would be a much more controversial move. Yeah. But here it just works, because now, for example, let's have a look at the variations. Yeah. So if white was to take on d5, what would you play here, Simon?
Well, my natural thought is e4, but I mean, e4, bishop f4, bishop d6, don't know, but does that work? Well, it might only be
I quite like the idea of e4, but I'd be slightly concerned he would take. You've got this queen.
I've got a check, and I can take the bishop with check. I just want to get the queen around the back there.
Yeah, so I don't want to take, so I'll try bishop f4.
Now I'm wondering if I can go bishop d6.
I think you can, yeah.
I mean, I've got at least a draw, but I can take on g4 with a knight, so I mean, we could show it quickly.
Yeah, so bishop d6. So now if we take...
So queen takes.
Queen takes, and if we take on c4, we go queen g3 check. And now...
I've got the draw, but maybe I've got knight takes g4. Maybe.
Probably computer will be giving 0.00 here.
Yeah. But okay, I mean, that still demonstrates that if we're black and we've got a draw in hand, then...
But going back to this position, Simon, I think you've also got this option. I'm sure this rook d8 comes into play.
This is very nice. Just trying to take on d5, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. It's changing, because I'm sure, I mean, I'm not being funny, but Mr. Michiels, I'm sure would have been happy with it. Well, although he's played very aggressively, he's played a guy 200 points higher rated than him.
So he just snatched his hand off.
So, take that perpetual Emil, I'll have that.
Do you know I watched Hangover yesterday?
Oh yeah, is it the one where they're in Thailand? No, Las Vegas.
Well, actually, I watched it after I left you in the pub. I watched it with my girlfriend. Hangover 1.
Yeah,
and then
is that all with Mike Tyson and Tiger and stuff?
Yeah, but we still had some wine left after Hangover 1, so we actually watched Hangover 2 as well.
Oh right.
So but I remember, have you seen it?
Nah, not really.
Not really your thing, but I'd say the best actor, this little Chinese guy.
Oh yeah,
he's hilarious. Anyway, I'll just leave that. Okay. Anyway, very funny. Yeah. Sorry, Danny, I don't know what I was talking about there. But,
could we get back to the chat?
Sorry, let's go back.
Can we see my game against Lowball?
Oh, I love this. Look at that. Look at the water on the camera. Look. It's invisible.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
That's trippy, isn't it?
That's amazing. Yeah, that's quite scary. It looks like an invisible man or something.
It does.
Yeah. So if we think about his position side, I mean, it's quite clear that Black is doing well. For example, if you were to go Bishop F3, now E4 has a lot more power behind it.
Bang.
And
it's very strong, isn't it? Because you can't take it because you win a piece on E3, can't you?
Absolutely. I just showed him that variation. A check on G3, and then the bishop will be dropping.
The bishop with check, can't you? So it's just,
I mean, and also F1 is also hanging. So I don't think White would go bishop F3. What else could he play?
Well, G5. Let's see.
G5.
But this is when, and in the Najdorf, one thing I've realised is if you're going to play the Najdorf, you have to fight fire with fire. It's not like some other openings where you can, mess about and play quietly. If your opponent comes at you, rather than defending, you have to throw punches back at him, like here. Generally, is that fair to say?
It's an opening for dynamic players. I mean, that's why players like Kasparov did so well with the Najdorf, because he's principally a dynamic player. Yeah. Players who play maybe more positionally, they play stuff like the Berlin defence and bore us all to death. Yeah. But I like. It's a bit like when you're watching tennis and you're watching Roger Federer play. He just plays like with freedom and expression, and and contrast that with Rafa Nadal. He's bludgeoning you to, he's grinding you into submission.
Sounds like you're bitter against Nadal at the moment.
Anything
to do with the bet you lost?
No. No, I didn't have a bet on his opponent for the French Open.
No, of course you wouldn't do.
Life-changing amount of money, Yeah.
So that's why you have to. That's why you're here trying.
That's why I'm here.
You're trying to grind out a living in the GM studios. Okay, but this works very well. D5.
I think we can clearly see. And again, if you take on C4, then the Queen is still attacking,
incredibly strong.
And I'm also attacking. And if you go here, I go here. And if you play moves like, for example, I mean, could you go F6 there?
Well, and if you take on E3, take on E7.
That's a bit crazy.
Okay, but
I don't think it works.
Okay.
Let's just have a look at this, because I think I could just go Rook E8. Yeah. And now I'm hitting
a lot of things. Yeah.
And if you go Queen D8, I go Knight C6. Yeah. So I don't think that.
No. Even Queen.
It's very difficult for White to make variations work because his king is so weak.
Yeah. Yeah. And this just shows you fighting fire with fire. So this D5 move, I mean, let's just have a look at. We don't need to look at a lot more, but let's have a look at the next 5 moves, because G5 was played.
Well, G5 is a kind of so White is really hoping for example, Knight takes E4.
Yeah.
And then he would take on D5.
Yeah.
And we'd get this kind of position, which I think would probably be good for White. But a typical reply to the move G5 is the move D4.
Right, nice move. So you're just ignoring everything, and you're just coming straight down the middle.
You're regaining the material, basically.
Okay.
But
how does this end out? Let's have a look. I guess White has to take.
White has to basically take on F6.
And now your king's very safe. The black king is now. It's not going to be attacked, is it? Which is always a nice.
Yeah, thing. I mean, if I was White, I might have been tempted by a variation like this, Queen C4, Knight D5. But I guess after this, Black is doing very well.
Maybe Black can even use that G file himself,
Absolutely. I mean, when you give a check, then I come to H7 and I'm threatening Rook G8.
Yeah, who's king is weaker.
Yeah, I think White's king is more in trouble.
I agree.
So in the game, White played Knight A.
He did take.
Sorry, he did take, but then he went Knight A5.
Yeah.
Oh, so he got a tempo, but didn't really help him.
So similar. So, but takes King H1, King H7. Pawn on E3 is very annoying for And
but I actually think here that the white king is more exposed.
Yeah.
Because we've got this sort of pawn on F7.
7 defending everything.
Yeah. So
couple more, knight d7. And
we'll just quickly look at what happened.
yeah, just a couple more. Okay, I mean I think this is threatening queen h3 checkmate.
So white doesn't really have anything up here, does he?
No checks.
Rook check.
Just well, it's a check, isn't it? And that pawn's too strong. Oh, this is typical Sutovsky tactics, isn't it? You know, tricky. Oh,
he's not even. Oh, he's going. So he's threatening rook takes. Well, all queen h3 check.
Let's have a look at it finish. It's quite nice.
King h2.
He's just playing with his food, isn't he? You know, before he decides to eat
rook
it.
d1.
Threatening rook h1.
Wow.
Oh well.
Very nice game, actually.
Yeah.
But really a typical example, I think, of this d5 and how quickly it liberates black's position.
Sure. And I just want to show that again one more time, because this, as Danny said, is so important. This d5 move. I mean, you know, we've seen it in the past. The one difference with this game is that black has played e5. In the previous examples of this DVD, it's when the pawn's on e6 and you go d5. So this is slightly different. But if you can ever get this move in, and it's especially strong when white has pushed his kingside pawns, but d5, this is a really important move, isn't it? D5. So definitely it's worth considering it. All options. Actually, an important move in other Sicilian lines. You think about the dragon. D5 is one of the main lines in the dragon when black plays it. In a lot of Sicilians, this move D5 is a freeing manoeuvre, isn't it? So,
absolutely, yeah. And white constantly has to be wary of it.
Yeah. So have you got any more examples of that for us?
Yeah, I'm going to show you a variation from a game I had in the next game, just quite quickly, just to give you another example of this idea of D5.
And does D5 happen in this next game at some point? Or
well, it's a particular variation.
Okay, cool. So.